Hi, welcome back to another Car Test Lab video. My name is James Batchelor and today I'm taking a look at the brand new Audi A6 Sportback e-tron, and I'm going to be getting behind the wheel just before this car arrives in the UK. Let's take a look around. So I'm in Tenerife and of course it's just started to rain, so if there are any water droplets on the camera lens I apologise in advance. Right then, this new Audi A6 e-tron Sportback. I have to say this is an incredibly good looking car. I think it's probably one of the best looking Audis for quite some time, and there's a very good reason for its sleekness, because Audi has worked very hard on how aerodynamic this car is. Of course, as we know, electric cars they really are affected by drag, aero efficiency, and Audi's worked hard on making this car as aerodynamic as possible. In fact, they've succeeded because this is the most aerodynamic Audi ever. In keeping with those aerodynamics, it is a very, very smooth front. You know, gone the days of enormous Audi grills. There's still a hint of the Audi single frame grille, but it's all pretty much flared in with just the vents down at the bottom. We've got these split headlights, which we first saw on the Q6, which this car shares a platform with. It's not picking up very well on the camera, it's all very flashy, but the day running light here, you can change between 8 different designs, and then the headlamp is down here in a totally different, well, it's split, so it's down here in this black area, which gives this car in the daytime quite a very cool and futuristic look. Of course, you get matrix headlights as standard on the top spec edition 1. Moving around to the side, enormous alloy wheels, which again is sort of in contrast to this car's efficiency. Of course, big wheels reduce efficiency, but Audi knows that people, particularly Brits, love big wheels on their cars. Massive 21 inches on this car. Down the side, we've got this interesting design theme, which is this black kind of strip. It's roughly where the battery is in the platform, and Audi say this piece of black trim denotes the heart of the car. It also is a very good stylistic feature because it reduces the visual bulk, how tall this car is. It makes it look a lot sleeker. Of course, we've got door handles which are flared in, of course, all designed to make this car as efficient as possible. And speaking of efficiency, yes, we've got digital door mirrors. I'll talk more about this a little bit later on. You don't have to have them, they're an optional extra. You can have standard door mirrors, but Audi says by fitting these, it makes the car 7 kilometres more efficient. So this is the Sportback. There is no Audi A6 Saloon anymore, so you get this very coupe-ish hatchback design. I think it looks absolutely fantastic. Let's talk about the rear lights. So again, they're OLED technology, and you can change the design of all of these. I think there's 8 different designs. This LED light bar, you can't change that. That is on all the time. And then there is an illuminated 4 rings. This is the first Audi to get that. Let me know what you think. I think it looks pretty good, actually. Sometimes these illuminated logos can look a bit tacky, but I think here it looks pretty smart. We've got a bit of a diffuser there. Yeah, and overall, I think this is an incredibly good looking car. While we're at the back, let's take a look in the boot. Electric tailgate, of course. Forgive my bag, but you can see just how big this boot is with my bag there. So this Sportback has a boot volume of 502 litres, and that expands to 1,330 when you fold down those rear seats. It's a very good space, this, actually, and because it's a hatchback tailgate, you get a lot of easy access. This car's got lots of nets as well to keep your items secure. But if you need more boot space, there is an Avant version, Audi A6 Avant e-tron, and it has the same boot volume with the seats up, but with the seats down, it expands to 1,422 litres. The other thing to mention is there's also a frunk, 27 litres worth of luggage space up front. So what powers the new Audi A6? Well, there are different variants. There's the standard e-tron, which gets an 83 kilowatt hour battery. a 326 horsepower rear motor, and that's good for a range of 383 miles. Then there's the e-tron Performance, which gets a 100 kilowatt hour battery, a 380 horsepower motor at the back, and that is good for 463 miles. So that is the most, well, that's the version of the A6 which can travel the furthest on a single charge. And then there's the e-tron Quattro, which uses the same 100 kilowatt hour battery but adds a second motor to the front axle to give Quattro four-wheel drive, 462 horsepower and 438 miles. And then sitting right at the top of the range is the S6, which gets 551 horsepower and a range of 405 miles. Now let's just talk a little bit about charging, because it's not all that straightforward. So there's 800 volt charging capability, 225 kilowatts maximum output on the smaller battery, and that increases to 270 for the 100 kilowatt hour cars. There are a couple of charging ports as well, one on the left on the driver's side, so you get your DCC charging, electrically deployable as well. I wonder how long that will last in the future. I'm such an old cynic, aren't I? And then round on the other side you've got another charging port. Let's just open that. And that's just a conventional Type 2. So yeah, you get a choice of different charging ports should you need it. So inside the new Audi A6 e-tron Sportback, and unsurprisingly, it has Audi's latest dashboard design. We've seen this on the Audi Q6, which this car shares a platform with, and the new Audi A5 also has a few design similarities as well. Now, you'll notice this, well, Audi call it a theatre stage. So you've got the big screen in front of you there, which wraps around to the infotainment screen. There's another passenger display, which comes as standard on Edition 1 cars, the top spec version of the Audi A6, of course. And then this car's also got, as you'll notice, digital door mirrors. If I come over this side, you can see them just there. Now, this isn't the first Audi to have this technology. The original e-tron, the big SUV, had it, but this time around Audi says it has really worked hard on improving the functionality of them, and I have to say they have done a better job, particularly on the passenger side. That mirror is roughly in the same place you'd expect the normal glass mirror to be. However, on this side I'm not immensely keen on it. Whenever I've been driving this car and I've wanted to look in my mirror, I still look over there, I don't look there. And also, this is too shallow. You know, you're expecting a mirror to be like that, aren't you? Not like that. But for some people, and Audi UK thinks that lots of Brits are going to go for these digital mirrors, it could be a nice, well, it's a talking point, isn't it? If you want them, Audi's going to charge you £1,495 for them. So, expensive piece of kit. Anyway, let's move on. This car's also got a digital augmented head-up display. You can't see it working at the moment, but it's really, really good, actually. If you've got the navigation on, you get all these arrows on the screen in front of you. If you've reached a checkpoint, you know, a checkpoint on your route, this checkered flag comes towards you and you sort of drive through it. It sounds, I'm not really selling it, am I? But it works very, very well indeed. Right, aside from the screens, there is no leather used in this interior whatsoever. Audi's used vegan leather for the steering wheel and lots of lovely fabrics, which thank goodness, because I think fabrics feel great in a car, that give a nice warmth to it. And this fabric is used right across the dashboard there. You can option this car with a switchable transparent roof. I'm going to have to include a cutaway photo of that because this car doesn't have it, unfortunately. It's very, very clever. Cars like the Renault Scenic have it, and yeah, it allows you to change the brightness of the light coming into the cabin. And again, it's a very cool piece of tech. Really very nice indeed. Talking about other bits of tech, well, this car is absolutely full of technology, as you'd expect. This touchscreen infotainment system, as is the norm these days, everything is controlled through it. It is pretty easy to use, as you'd expect an Audi to be. The thing I don't like about it is the major controls are here, and I find that when you're driving, the wheel totally obscures them, so you do kind of have to poke your head round the corner of the steering wheel. But again, if you had this car, you'd probably get used to that, and you'd be able to learn and work around it. But generally speaking, this is a very nice and easy infotainment system to use. Down to the centre console, we've got a wireless charging pad there with a little clip to hold your phone in place, a couple of cup holders. You've got a couple of buttons here, which I'm pleased about. You actually get a volume knob for the radio, which is super. A bit of storage under here. And then moving over to this side, we've got this control panel which controls your lights, your seats and your mirrors. Personally, I think there's too many controls on one panel there. I would have liked that to have been separated. But generally speaking, this is a very, very comfortable, warm and inviting interior. In the back of the A6 Sportback, and it could be better, to be perfectly honest with you. I'm 5'11" and my head actually touches the top of the roof there. That is just, unfortunately, that is the consequence of having a sloping roof line and the consequence of having a car that looks this good. If you regularly intend on carrying 6-footers, they're going to struggle back here. Not only that, but with this tinted glass, black roof lining and black trim, it is also pretty claustrophobic back here as well. Another thing I'm not a particular fan of is this rear seat squab. It's pretty short. It doesn't extend very long. It's also pretty flat. So when you're sitting here, you tend to find your legs and your knees are up at a bit of an acute angle. The Avant, the estate version of this car, is a bit better. It's got a smidge more headroom, but you're not really going to be buying this car. Well, if you intend on carrying people in the back regularly, perhaps the BMW i5 might be a better option. To drive, the A6 e-tron Sportback is pretty much what you'd expect any modern... Oh, bloody hell. F***ing speed limiter. To drive, well, the Audi A6 e-tron Sportback is just like, well, pretty much every other electric Audi we've seen so far, only slightly better, I think. Now, admittedly, I haven't driven the new Q6 e-tron, which this car shares a platform with, but you can sense that there is well, it's just a bit of a development in terms of electric architecture, the way the car gets down the road, refinement levels. It all feels very, very plush and premium. And that's exactly what you want from an Audi, after all, isn't it? So this is the performance model, so 380 horsepower. Despite it being the performance model, curiously named, it should really be called the long range, because this car gets the big battery, but it's only a single motor. So the range is up to just over 460 miles, which I know that's always the claimed figure, but if you could get within 100 miles of that in the UK, that's really good, isn't it? Of course, a car with 380 horsepower is nicely quick. I have driven the S6 with over 500 horsepower, and again, classic motoring journalist cliche, I don't really think you need over 500 horsepower in a car like this. 380 horsepower seems far, well, more than quick enough. But of course, there will be some who really desire the whole S-badged Audi thing. They just want an S6 on their driveway, and I understand that. But unless you desperately need four-wheel drive, go for this rear-wheel drive large battery model, because you've got more than enough performance and you get a pretty good range. Now, this is a big car, undeniably, but after a while it doesn't really feel like a big car. I always find the BMW i5, doesn't matter what you do, it always feels quite a substantial car. This doesn't. Not only does it sort of, again, another motoring cliche, shrink around you, but it just feels a really well engineered and a quality car. I tend to find a lot of electric cars recently, particularly from the German manufacturers, they feel as though they're a step down from the ICE versions, the older petrol and diesel versions of those cars. This doesn't. This is the first Audi that I've driven which feels, well, first electric Audi that I've driven, that actually feels like a petrol A6, the old version. There's just a real sense of solidity and quality to it. Now, I do have to make an admission. Now, Audi have flown us out to Tenerife to drive this car. There are only two versions of this car to drive, the e-tron Performance, which is this car, and the S6. You can drive it in Sportback and Avant trims. But in terms of the powertrains, there's only two options available. Audi have decided to fit all of the A6s with air suspension. In the UK, you cannot get air suspension on any Audi A6. It comes as standard on the S6, but you can't get it on the A6. So I'm driving around on these roads with air-sprung suspension, and I cannot give you an honest review on the ride quality because I'm just gliding over potholes. Not that the roads in Tenerife are particularly bad. So I'm going to have to wait until I drive the car in the UK to give you an idea of what it's like, what the ride quality is like. And that's just such a shame because, well, ride is really important, isn't it? Aside from that, this is a very, very quiet car to drive. Very, very hush. And again, it just sort of adds to the fact that this car feels very, very premium. Handling-wise, this is a surprisingly engaging car to drive, and I say surprising because, like with all electric cars, it's pretty lardy, and traditionally Audis have always been on the safe side in terms of handling. They've never found it engaging as a BMW. This is not as engaging to drive as the BMW i5, not by a long chalk, but it's still pretty enjoyable to drive. You turn this car into a corner, it feels surprisingly darty. It can take you by surprise at first, but once you've got used to it, and you've got that rear driven motor in this particular car, it feels just a little bit playful. Oh good, it's just started to rain, so I'll have to deliver my final piece of camera to you inside the car. So what do I think to the Audi A6 e-tron Sportback? Well, this car has surprised me. It's really nice to drive, but more importantly, it is super, super plush and comfortable, and it just feels a very well-engineered, well-considered car. A lot of electric cars from German manufacturers these days, I just find as though those car brands are better at building petrol cars as opposed to electric. I feel as though Audi is starting to crack that now. This is a seriously, seriously impressive car. If it can do those claimed range figures, then again, this could be a really, really desirable electric car in the UK. I can't really comment in terms of ride quality and overall refinement because this car isn't UK representative, but the car I'm sitting in at the moment is really, really very nice. Now the prices are up on the screen just at the bottom right now, and for the most part this car does undercut its two nearest competitors, the BMW i5 and the Mercedes-Benz EQE. The BMW is more engaging to drive, but I prefer this car's interior. I prefer the way it looks as well, and I think it just beats the Mercedes EQE hands down in pretty much every department. This is a seriously impressive electric executive car.